Hey, Pastor Rob here. Just wanted to thank you for checking out our messages online and wanted to encourage you. I pray that your soul is nourished through the hearing of the word. But at the same time, the writer of Hebrews is very clear about not giving up meeting together. Don't give up the larger gathering. As a matter of fact, in the book of Acts, the early church made it a point to meet together almost daily, even breaking bread together, encouraging one another, being in communion with one another to build each other up. And that is vitally important to your spiritual walk. So I pray that you enjoy this message, but at the same time, I pray that you find a great church body to be a part of, whether that be here at the bridge or somewhere else, so that you can be built up as well. Thank you, and God bless.
Good morning. Look at you. 12 below zero. And you're in church at 9 o'clock in the morning. Wow, you must really be spiritual. It's incredible. Hey, if we haven't met, my name's Tim, and I'm filling in today because influenza A went sweeping through Pastor Rob's house this week. And so in the middle of the week, I said, I'll fill in if you want me to. And I don't even think he prayed about it. He just said, okay. If we haven't met, I'm the district superintendent over the Wesleyan churches in the states of Iowa and Minnesota, which means I get to work with 30-plus congregations across our two-state area. And I actually live, and I have an office here at the Bridge Church. I actually live in Charles City, but because of my ministry, I don't get to be here often on Sundays, so this is a privilege. You are my home congregation. I'm a member here, and it's really, 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 really good to be here. So, read about a guy, got on an airplane in New York, nonstop flight to Los Angeles, California. Got up to cruising altitude, and a voice came over the loudspeaker system that said, "You are privileged to be on the very first all-computer-controlled flight. There is no pilot. There is no co-pilot. There is no navigator, because they are no longer necessary. But do not worry. Nothing can possibly go wrong. Go wrong, go wrong, go wrong." So Happy New Year. I love New Year. There's something hopeful about a new year. You know, this is the year I'm going to get in shape, just like the last 10. This is the year I'm going to get ahead financially. This is the year I'm going to reach my goals. And I am going to set my plan. I am going to establish my goals. I'm going to make my resolutions. And this year, nothing can possibly go wrong, go wrong, go wrong. See, I'm all about that stuff. I think you should be optimistic heading into a new year. I think it is a great opportunity for change. I think you should set goals. I think you should have resolutions. But the problem with all of that is that in the coming year, you will face all kinds of stuff that is out of your control. In spite of your best planning, in spite of your hard work, in spite of your best efforts, you're going to find yourself waiting on God to do for you what you cannot do for yourself. Look back over 2021. Can you name some things that you encountered that you could have never predicted? Did you find love? Did you lose it? Did you get that promotion, or did you get passed over? Did you make progress financially, or were you hit by something unexpected? Did you have to bury a loved one? And a year from now, we could gather in this room and we could make a list of things that happened in 2022 that we didn't see coming. Now, I know I'm sounding negative, and I'm sorry about that. I love a new year, and like I said, I think we should approach it optimistically. But the problem is, like I said, over the next 365 days, we're going to encounter some stuff we don't have control over. So today, I could give you a message on how to change, on how to establish goals, how to make the most out of this new year. And I've done that before as a pastor, and that's okay. I think those are helpful. And in fact, if you want one of those messages, call me up and I'll arrange a private viewing. I'm not expecting any phone calls. Instead, we're going to talk about waiting on God. Because like I said, even if you do everything right in the coming year, and you won't, but even if you did, you would encounter some stuff beyond your control, and you will find yourself having to push the pause button and waiting for God to do something for you you can't do for yourself. Now, we're going to camp out in the book of Lamentations, but it's going to take us 10 minutes or so to get there. We kind of want to set the table on this subject. The first thing I want to talk about a little bit, and I don't know if you've thought about this or not, is the hope-waiting connection. There is a connection between hope and waiting. Now, when you show up on the first Sunday of the year, you expect to hear words like hope and optimism. You don't expect to hear words like waiting. But if you look at Scripture, you'll see there's a very real connection. In fact, one cannot exist without the other. Look at this verse in Psalm 33:20. We wait in what? In hope for the Lord, for he is our help and our shield. We don't just wait and we don't just hope, we wait in hope. And in fact, if it wasn't for waiting, hope wouldn't be necessary. Is that true? You wouldn't need hope if you got everything you wanted when you wanted it. If things happened according to my timetable or yours, we wouldn't even need hope. That's the whole idea. I like something that Lewis Smedes wrote. He said, waiting is our destiny. As creatures who cannot by themselves bring about what they hope for. It's a great statement. We are creatures who by ourselves cannot bring about what we hope for. We wait in darkness for a flame we cannot light. We wait in fear for a happy ending we cannot write. End quote. Waiting is the hardest part of hope. Hanging on. Refusing to stop believing. Refusing to become a victim. Because that's what happens when you surrender hope. You take on a victim mindset. In 2022, we're going to face all kinds of stuff that are out of our control, situations that we didn't see coming, stuff that will require us to wait and say, God, I can't change this. I'm waiting on you to do what I can't. So before we get to Lamentations and talk about what hope is, let's talk about what it isn't. First of all, I want you to understand that hope isn't passive avoidance. It's not just, I don't want to think about it. Look at what the Hebrew writer says. We want each of you to show this same diligence to the very end in order to make your hope sure. We do not want you to become lazy, but to imitate those who through faith and patience inherit what has been promised. See, you need to understand that hoping is not the equivalent of doing nothing. Hoping is active. Hoping isn't avoiding something and pretending like it's not there. It isn't getting out of the race. It's staying in the race and running, not frantically, but patiently, continuing to faithfully do what I can. Listen, continuing to faithfully do what I can while I'm waiting for God to do what I can't. For example, if my marriage is struggling and I'm hoping for a better marriage, I don't wait around for my spouse to change first. That's not hope. If I'm really hoping for something better, I'm going to be the best version of what I can be and let God make whatever changes He wants to make in my spouse. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying? If you're not actively doing what you can't honestly say that you're hoping. Let me say that again. If you're not actively doing what you can't honestly say you're hoping. Here's a second thing. Hoping is also not giving up. I mean, we know that, right? It's not acknowledging the issue is there, but saying, I give up. Look at what Isaiah says. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They'll run and not grow weary. They'll walk and not be faint. But now look at that verse in another translation, the New King James Version. But those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. There's that hope-waiting connection again. One verse translates the Hebrew word wait. Another translation translates the Hebrew word hope, because you can't have one without another. Those who wait on the Lord don't give up. Those who wait on the Lord renew their strength. Those who wait on the Lord stay in the race. Okay, let's go to Lamentations. We're gonna camp out in the book of Lamentations for a little while. Lamentations, probably written by the prophet Jeremiah, although we don't know for sure, is a lament over the fall of Jerusalem. Dark, dark days. In fact, Jeremiah is known as the weeping prophet. But even in the midst of his weeping, even in the midst of his grieving, he's looking forward in hope to better days. So, here you go. Here's the first characteristic of really waiting on God. Waiting on God is remaining optimistic. It's remaining optimistic. Lamentations chapter 3. I remember my affliction and my wandering, the bitterness and the gall. I remember them. I well remember them. And my soul is downcast within me. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. My soul is downcast in me, Jeremiah says, and then he injects that enormous three-letter word, yet. Yet I call this to mind. In spite of all this stuff going on around me, yet I call this to mind. So I have hope. We'll read it in a minute, but it's the love and faithfulness of God that he calls to mind. Jeremiah says, sure, my soul is downcast. Sure, this is a bummer. Sure, this stinks. Sure, things are different than I wish they were. But I have hope. I'm going to say this again because we need to hear this in our day and age. The thing I like about biblical hope is that it keeps me from becoming a victim. It keeps me from embracing that you don't know what I've been through mentality, that mentality that says, I can't help being bitter, I can't help feeling this way. Keeps me from withdrawing into myself and having a pity party. Another characteristic of biblical hope is it's living in gratitude. Living in gratitude. Let's read on. Because of the Lord's great love and compassion, we're not consumed. For his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I love this. Even though life was tough, Jeremiah was able to see and appreciate God's great mercies every morning. Here's the thing. Listen. Many times when we're waiting for something, we become so obsessed with what we don't have, we can't appreciate what we do have. For example, a single person is so focused on their desire to be married that she can't appreciate her friends. Or a man is so focused on his desire for a promotion or for a new job, he can't seem to appreciate that while he's waiting, he at least has a job that will provide for his family. You get the idea. While you're waiting for God to meet a need, if you're a hopeful person, you're still able to see and be grateful for God's blessings in other areas. Thirdly, it is learning how to really depend on God. We'll read on in Lamentations 3. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I'll wait for him. The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him, to the one who seeks him. How often do we pay lip service to trusting God, all the while trying to force something to happen in our own efforts? Trying to make something work. Claiming to trust the leading and the timing of God while frantically trying to manipulate something into happening. When you really wait on God, you still actively try to seek solutions. I get that, but you don't force stuff. You don't run ahead of him. You don't make the situation worse by applying your own solutions. I'm going to skip this next one because I have a problem in this area and I don't want to face it. Not really, we won't skip it. It's staying calm. When you're hopeful, you stay calm. Verse 26, Lamentations 3, it is good to wait how? What does it say? It's good to wait how? Are you awake? Quietly. For the salvation of the Lord. This is convicting to me. I'm not good at this. I wait, but often it's not quietly. It's with agitation and worry. I lose sleep over stuff I can't control. I'll be real transparent with you right now. Dawn and I have some kids who are going through some stuff, some adult children. And I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll pray, but pretty soon my praying turns to worry. And I'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and not go back to sleep. So if you think that in order to be a preacher, you've got to have a handle on all the stuff you're preaching about, it's not true. I'm waiting for God to work, but often it's not quietly. Maybe you, like I, need to learn to trust. Need to learn not to worry. The New Testament Greek word for worry means to be divided or torn apart. Your hopes pull you in one direction and your fears pull you in another, and you feel like your heart's being ripped in half. That's worry. But when you really trust God's work and trust his timing, you learn to wait calmly. See, here's our problem. Our problem is that we want God's provision, but we don't want his timing. We want God's perfect plan, but we want it now. One more from Lamentations. or actually this one's from Psalms, excuse me. Waiting, hopeful waiting, means being obedient while I'm waiting. Psalm 119. I wait for your salvation, O Lord. And what do I do while I'm waiting? What do I do? And I follow your commands. This is significant. It's important to remain faithful while we're waiting. Okay, remember a few minutes ago I used the example of marriage. If I'm hoping, really hoping for God's healing in a fractured relationship, I don't wait for my spouse to go first. See, the New Testament formula for a great marriage is found in the book of Ephesians, where the Apostle Paul says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved his church and gave himself for her. Wives, respect your husbands. I don't have time to go into the emotional significance of those two things. But if I'm really hoping for the best marriage I can possibly have, I don't sit back and say, listen, I'm not showing love to my wife until I feel like she's respecting me like I deserve. A wife doesn't say, I'm not showing him respect, he doesn't deserve it because he's not loving me. If you are really waiting in hope, you're obedient. And I could apply that to so many other areas. All right. There's one more question we want to wrestle with a little bit. Why does God make us wait? Why? Wouldn't an omnipotent, loving Father just give us what we want? I don't know. You give your children everything they want when they want it? I didn't think so. Neither does our Father. Here's why he makes us wait. Because what God does in us while we wait is as important as what we're waiting for. That's why. In fact, what God does in us while we wait is probably more important than what he does for us. Waiting isn't just something we have to do. It's not wasted time. It's the process. It's part of the process that God uses to make us like his son Jesus. There are no shortcuts. God's best work is not what he gives us. His best work is what he does in us while we wait for that gift. That's a tough lesson to learn. Look at one more passage in James, and I want to talk a little bit about, I want to go over a short little laundry list of some stuff that God does in us when we're going through waiting. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials. I hate that verse. Really? Count it joy? Knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience, but let patience have its perfect work. Patience? What's that? That sounds a little like waiting, doesn't it? That you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it'll be given to him. But let him ask in faith with no doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For let not that man suppose he'll receive anything from the Lord. He's a double-minded man, unstable in all he does. Real quickly. First of all, waiting on God develops my faith. It tests my faith. What's a test for? A test is to prove if something is legit. When you take a test at school, it's to prove you have that material under your belt. The whole idea of testing is to make us stronger. When I wait on God and I see that He's faithful, it makes my faith stronger for the next time when I'm waiting for something bigger. Secondly, waiting on God develops my character, or builds my character, rather. In James' words, it makes me mature and complete, lacking nothing. Wow, I wish there was a shortcut to being mature and complete. Don't you? Thirdly, waiting on God gives me wisdom. This is interesting. James says that when you encounter trials, when you go through stuff, the first thing you pray for is wisdom. He says, before you even pray, God, get me out of this, you pray, God, help me to learn the lessons I need to learn while I'm in this. Help me not to waste this pain I'm going through right now. Jeez, come on. If you get out of that trial without learning anything from it, what's the benefit of that? It's like paying tuition and not going to class. Get some wisdom while you're waiting. A couple more. Waiting on God helps me learn to pray. We already touched on this a little bit. You pray for wisdom first. Finally, waiting on God gives me focus and stability. Not double-minded, not like a person who's tossed back and forth like a wave. Okay, time for a survey. See if you're still awake. How many of you like to wait? That's what I thought. But listen to me. If God will build into my life all of those qualities we just talked about, if He will do that while I'm waiting, that seems like a pretty good trade-off. Well, it's 2022. How about that? I still remember as a young man, the year 2000 seeming impossibly far off. And here we are 22 years past that. 2022. I don't know what it's going to, I tell you, I hope it's better than 2020 and 2021. But we know there will be times when we will not be able to make things happen the way we want. And we will be forced to say, God, I'm waiting on you. And here's the thought I want to leave you with. While you're waiting, don't think that it's wasted time. So I need a little help from you musicians. How many musicians do we have here? Okay. A few of you, all right. Let's bring up that next slide, please. Musicians, what are those things? Rests. Okay? An eighth rest, quarter rest, half rest, whole rest. What happens during a rest? So here's the question. So when you come to a rest, there is silence. Does that mean the music has stopped? Or is the silence a part of the song? It's part of the song. Remove the rest and you ruin the song. Listen, during those times, in the days ahead when you're waiting on God, just remember, waiting is part of the song.